after 34 years of building a $200 million a year annual sales company and hiring a tremendous amount of employees, I'm finding that stability on a resume is very rare. And now that AI is potentially making intelligence a commodity, that makes stability even more important on the resume. And we learned this running that company way before AI. We learned that stable and having stability and hiring for stability, it became a competitive advantage for us. And stability, what is stability? Well, it's employees that stay there, that are there, that don't leave and go to other companies. Because you can have the smartest employees in the world, the best educated, the most qualified, but if they ain't there, it just doesn't matter about all those qualifications. So we learned that we needed to hire for stability. We got off that, interview process and spending so much time in the interview process and looking at their education and things like that. And we focused more on how long they had been at those previous companies. Because think about this, in a large company, you got 1,000 employees or more, one employee being gone, it's not a big deal, right? Less than 1%. But on a small company, less than 100 employees, that's a percent or two. Not to mention that most small companies have very small departments. So you got 1 or 2 employees gone from a department, that can be 25, 30% of a whole department in a small company. So it's very devastating to not have stability and low turnover in your company. And what we ended up finding was we needed to only hire employees that had been at their previous company a minimum of 3 years, and we preferred 5 years or more. Now, some younger employees, we might consider, if they were in their lower 20s, we might consider 2 years. But for the most part, we really focused on making sure that resume showed at least 5 years of employment in their previous companies. And what does stability do for your company? How does it make you better having stable employees? Well, having stable employees, they're less restless. They're more focused. They aren't constantly thinking about moving on to the next job or a more exciting company. They also, stable employees are more resistant to drama, any kind of drama that happens. Sometimes there's employee drama or, disagreements and whatnot. Well, they're more resistant to that. And they've proven themselves, obviously, at their previous companies that they've been there a long time. Stable employees are also more resistant to management mistakes. Sometimes you have new managers that make mistakes, or sometimes even old managers, they might make one mistake. And at least when you have stability in your employee base, they're more resistant to those mistakes and stay with you. They're also stable employees, low turnover gives your customers a tremendous amount of confidence. They love seeing low turnover and they don't like seeing a revolving door. Of course, your other employees are more confident because they know when an employee's been in a department longer, they know what they're talking about. And then of course, vendors are way more confident in you. And we knew this. We knew our vendors were confident in our stability of our employees because they were constantly trying to hire our employees. So the other thing that stability does for your company is it just reduces stress. When you got low turnover in a very stable workforce, if they're not gone, when an employee's gone, who's got to make up for that? The other employees got to make up for that. And that creates overtime, that creates stress on their families. I mean, the bottom line is that a stable workforce overall reduces the stress in a company. And then for us, it did another thing. When we got ready to sell that company, I can't tell you how many, people that were interested in our company were very impressed with how long our employees had been at the company. Many of them more than 30 years, more than 20 years, and a large proportion over 10 years. That allowed us to be able to sell that company easier. Now, the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, he said recently that AI is going to make intelligence a commodity. Now, we didn't have to worry about that when I was running my company because AI wasn't impacting us. But for the future, it looks to me like any company that is not focused on having a stable workforce and hiring for stability, they're at a competitive disadvantage.